Tonight, we speak quietly about a lighthouse, a remote structure on a small island, a place designed for safety, a place where something unexplained occurred. This is the story of the Flannan Isles Lighthouse. It stands on Eilean Mòr, a rocky island in the North Atlantic, west of the Outer Hebrides of Scotland. In December of 1900, the lighthouse went dark. When relief keepers arrived, no one was there. 3 men were missing. What follows is a careful account. It avoids speculation, avoids invention, remains close to documented evidence. Much about this event is unknown. What can be said is limited. That limitation is part of the story. We begin with the place. The Flannan Isles are a small group of islands, 7 main islands, in all lying roughly 20 miles west of the Isle of Lewis. Exposed to the open Atlantic, they are uninhabited and have never supported permanent settlement. Steep, rocky, difficult to land on, even in calm weather. Eilean Mòr is the largest of the group. Its name means Big Island. Despite this, it is small and isolated, perhaps half a mile in length. There are no trees. Little soil exists, and vegetation is limited to grass and low plants. Few sheltered areas provide protection. Weather conditions are harsh year-round. Wind is frequent and strong, storms common. Rain arrives suddenly. Fog obscures visibility without warning. The sea surrounding the islands is deep, with powerful currents. Waves can reach considerable height. During winter, conditions worsen significantly. It was on this island that the lighthouse was built. In the late 19th century, maritime traffic increased through the waters west of Scotland. Trade routes carried vessels between ports. Fishing fleets worked the waters. The coastline was dangerous. Rocks lay hidden beneath the surface. Weather could deteriorate rapidly. Ships were lost. Lighthouses were constructed to reduce this risk. They provided fixed points of light, warned ships of hazards, marked safe passages. The Northern Lighthouse Board oversaw this work. Established in 1786, it had responsibility for Scottish waters and employed engineers and keepers to build and maintain navigational aids. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse was commissioned after careful consideration. The location was strategically important. The conditions were acknowledged to be severe. Construction began in the 1892, and the work was demanding. Materials had to be transported by sea, and workers could only access the island during suitable weather. Progress was irregular, delays inevitable. Stone was brought from the mainland. The tower was built to withstand Atlantic storms, walls thick, structure solid. Living quarters were constructed adjacent to the tower, providing functional but basic accommodation. Storage areas held supplies. A landing area was improved, with steps carved into rock and a crane installed to lift cargo. Even so, landing remained hazardous. The lighthouse was completed in 1899 after years of effort and significant expense. The tower stands near the highest point of Eilean Mòr, rising above the rocky terrain, solid, functional, built to endure. The light became operational in December 1899, staffed by lighthouse keepers as was standard practice. The Northern Lighthouse Board operated the facility according to established procedures and strict standards. 3 keepers were assigned to each remote lighthouse policy for isolated stations. 2 remained on duty at all times, while 1 rested ashore on the mainland. Rotations were regular, typically every few weeks. The relief keeper would replace one of the men on duty, who would then return to shore. Supplies were delivered by ship, food, fuel, equipment on schedule, weather permitting. At the Flannan Isles Lighthouse, the arrangement followed this pattern. Lighthouse keeping was skilled work. Men were trained to maintain the light mechanism, clean lenses daily, record weather observations, keep detailed logs. The work required discipline. Isolation required resilience. The environment demanded caution. Communication with shore was limited, no telegraph, no wireless equipment. Messages could only be sent when supply ships arrived. The keepers depended on each other in their confined quarters. They worked together, endured storms together. This interdependence was essential, especially at remote stations. In December 1900, 3 men were assigned to the lighthouse. James Ducat was the principal keeper, 43 years old and experienced, having served at Clyde, at Tyree, at other stations. He was married with children, regarded as reliable. Thomas Marshall was an assistant keeper, 28 years old, with a record showing competence. He was also married, having previously served on other stations. Donald MacArthur was an occasional keeper in his 40s, familiar with lighthouse work and having served in several locations. He had been at Flannan Isles before and knew the conditions well. These men were on duty together in mid-December 1900. The lighthouse was last known to be operational on December 15th, when passing ships reported seeing the light through clear weather, its characteristic pattern observed. After that, it was not seen. At the time, this was not immediately unusual. Weather conditions often obscured visibility. Lights could be hidden by fog or heavy seas. However, reports continued. Several ships noted the absence of the light. The pattern persisted. Concern began to develop. The lighthouse was scheduled for a routine relief visit. The supply vessel was the Hesperus, a steamship of modest size departing from Briascleet on the Isle of Lewis. The scheduled date was December 20th. The Hesperus attempted to reach the island, but heavy seas prevented safe landing. This was not uncommon. Relief visits were sometimes delayed. Days passed while weather remained unfavourable. On December 26th, 1900, conditions improved enough to approach Eilean Mòr. The usual procedure was to signal arrival by sounding a horn, and the keepers would respond. There was no response. The crew looked toward the lighthouse. No signal flags were flying unusual, since standard procedure required a flag to be raised, acknowledging the ship's arrival. The absence was noted, but landing proceeded. Joseph Moore, a relief keeper who knew the station and had served there previously, went ashore. Rowed to the landing, he climbed the steep, rocky path to the lighthouse, approaching the entrance gate to find it closed but not locked. This struck him as odd. He continued to the door and found it closed. He knocked, waited, knocked again. No response came. He called out. His voice echoed, but no one answered. He opened the door and entered. Inside, everything appeared orderly. No signs of struggle, no overturned furniture, no visible damage. The lamps were cleaned and prepared for lighting. The clock had stopped. The beds were unmade, somewhat unusual, as beds were typically made during morning routine. No one was present. He moved through the rooms, calling out again. Still no response. The kitchen showed signs of recent use. A meal appeared to have been prepared. Some food remained on the table. Dishes were unwashed. A chair was overturned, though its significance was unclear. Personal belongings remained. Pipes, tobacco, clothing hung on hooks. He examined the oilskins, heavy waterproof coats essential for work outside in wet conditions. At least one set remained inside. Others were absent, suggesting some men had gone outside. The lighthouse logbook was found in its usual place. Entries were recorded up to December 15th in clear handwriting. Standard format weather observations noted, routine tasks recorded. After December 15th, there were no entries. The 3 keepers were gone. Joseph Moore felt a profound unease in the silence. He searched more thoroughly storage areas, equipment rooms, but nothing explained the absence. He went outside and walked the perimeter, looking for any sign of the men. The exterior showed storm damage, but no men were found. He returned to the landing and signalled the ship. Rowed back to the Hesperus, he reported his findings to Captain James Harvey, who made the decision to send additional crew members ashore. They confirmed Mòr's observations and conducted further searches. No trace of the keepers was found. Upon return to Lewis, the captain notified authorities by telegram. The Northern Lighthouse Board was informed, and an official investigation was initiated immediately. Robert Muirhead, the superintendent, travelled aboard the Hesperus and arrived on December 29th. His task was to determine what could be known, not to speculate beyond evidence, but to establish facts where possible. Muirhead's examination was thorough. The lighthouse interior was intact, the structure sound, the light mechanism functional. The lamps had been cleaned and prepared, indicating normal procedure had been followed and work completed properly. He reviewed the log entries carefully. They mentioned strong winds on December 12th, storms, high seas. One entry noted damage to equipment on the west landing. Another recorded severe weather conditions on December 13th. A further entry mentioned all 3 men had been affected. The exact wording is documented. The final entry was dated December 15th. It was routine in nature, recording calm weather. After that, the record ends. No entry described an emergency. No entry recorded unusual events on the 15th. No entry recorded abandonment of the post. This absence is significant, but it does not explain events. Outside the lighthouse, storm damage was evident, particularly on the western side, facing the full force of Atlantic weather. A landing area existed there, used for bringing supplies ashore in certain conditions. Railings had been bent or torn away. A storage box was broken, its contents scattered or missing. Heavy stones had been moved, large stones, some weighing more than a ton, displaced by wave action. A life buoy had been washed away. Ropes were damaged. These observations suggested weather capable of generating exceptional wave force. On the eastern side, less damage was visible. This more sheltered side showed only normal wear at the landing used by the Hesperus. Searches were conducted around the island, the coastline examined, cliff edges checked. No bodies were found, no personal effects recovered, no clear evidence of fate discovered. The sea around Eilean Mòr is deep with strong currents and complex tidal flows. Recovery would be unlikely. Bodies swept into the water would not be recovered. After careful review and examination of all available evidence, the official conclusion was restrained. The keepers were presumed lost to the sea. The likely cause, as stated officially, was an accident during severe weather. The men may have gone outside during or after a storm, attempting to secure equipment or check damage, and may have been overwhelmed by waves. The exact sequence could not be established. Multiple scenarios were possible. None could be confirmed. No definitive explanation was offered. No witnesses existed. No physical proof remained. The report avoided speculation beyond evidence. It did not assign blame, did not propose extraordinary causes, acknowledged the limits of what could be known. The families of the keepers were informed, and financial provisions were made according to standard procedure. The lighthouse service mourned its men, their names recorded with honour. In the years that followed, the disappearance attracted public attention. Newspapers reported the event. Interest developed. Over time, stories became embellished. Details were added that appeared in no official record. Poems were written. Songs composed. The event entered popular culture. These later stories are not supported by evidence and are not part of the historical record. They reflect how mystery attracts elaboration. Historians distinguish between documentation and folklore, Only the former can be treated as reliable. What remains certain is limited. 3 men were assigned to the lighthouse. The light went dark. The men were gone when relief arrived. The environment was dangerous. Storm damage was present. The sea was capable of overwhelming individuals. These facts stand. No further certainty is possible. The lighthouse continued to operate with new keepers assigned to carry on the work. Years passed. Decades passed. Technology advanced. The lighthouse was later automated in the 1970 seconds, reducing the need for permanent staffing as such changes occurred across the lighthouse system. Automation improved safety keepers, no longer risked isolation, and remote operation became standard. Today, the Flannan Isles Lighthouse still stands, operating without keepers, its light maintained remotely with equipment monitored from shore. Eilean Mòr remains uninhabited. The island is visited rarely, mostly by researchers or maintenance crews, occasionally by those interested in history. The lighthouse buildings remain, weathered but intact, empty, with wind moving through them. The story of the lighthouse endures not because of answers, but because of uncertainty. It represents the limits of historical knowledge. Some events leave no complete record, some conclusions remain incomplete, some questions have no answers. This is not unusual. In maritime history, the sea often erases evidence, leaves only fragments, keeps its secrets. Men have been lost at sea throughout history. Vessels have disappeared. Entire crews have vanished. Usually, there is no mystery, simply absence, simply loss. As we reflect on this event, it is important to remain restrained. The absence of explanation is not an invitation to invention. History records what can be supported, accepts what cannot be recovered, acknowledges uncertainty where it exists. The Flannan Isles disappearance remains unresolved, not because of mystery in any supernatural sense, but because of missing evidence, because no one survived to tell what happened. The lighthouse was built to provide safety. It fulfilled that purpose for passing ships, its light guiding vessels, its presence warning of danger. Its loss of keepers was a human tragedy. 3 men died, families grieved, communities mourned. Their names remain recorded: James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, Donald MacArthur. Their service is documented. Their work is remembered. Their fate is unknown. That is where the account must end. Tonight, we leave Eilean Mòr as it is now, wind over rock, grass bending, sea moving steadily below. The lighthouse stands, the light shines, its beam sweeps the darkness, the island remains quiet, and the night passes.